dugsiga boardingka iyo maalinlaha ah ee Amano Boarding and Day School.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome my dear students. For the last week we have been talking about the process of digestion. In our previous lessons we learned that digestion has two major functions. One is breaking down food into smaller soluble molecules, and the other one is absorbing digested food from the small intestine so that the blood circulation can supply it into the throughout the body parts. Today we're going to talk about absorption of digested food. The process of absorption takes place in the small intestine. So today what we are going to talk about is to understand how the small intestine is adapted to the process of digestion. What type of process takes food from the small intestine to the rest of the body? So here we go. Digested food molecules are absorbed in the small intestine. The small intestine has two major parts. The first part is called duodenum, and the second part is called the ileum. Most of the absorption of food takes place in the ileum, which is the last part of the small intestine. It is generally the small intestine, or the human small intestine, is about 5 meters. So the first 30 centimeters is called duodenum, while the rest 470 centimeters is called the ileum, which is the place where most of the absorption of food takes place. Okay. When we are saying the absorption takes place in the small intestine, means that they pass through the walls of the small intestine and into our blood system. Look please, we learned previously what digestion is, the importance of digestion, like why we digest food. The answer was to convert the solid food molecules into smaller soluble ones so that cells can absorb it and also the blood can absorb it. So when we are talking about absorption, it means taking or passing food through the walls of the small intestine into the bloodstream. Why bloodstream? Because the bloodstream is the transport medium or transport system for the human body. It can take the food from the small intestine and supply it into the rest of the body. Once there, the digested food molecules are carried around the body to where they are needed, or which parts of the body that need it. Today we are not going to learn why we needed food, because we did that before. We said we need food to get energy, and we need energy to carry out the life processes. So each and every part of your body which contains the living cells need food. In general means it needs energy and other nutrients that can help the body parts to drive their physical activities or life processes. Absorption depends on the large surface area. This is the most important thing which I want you to remember, please. Whenever you are going to talk about absorption, please remember large surface area. The bigger the surface area, the more food absorbed from the, being absorbed from the large intestine. Because here, a very important process is taking place, which is called diffusion. Food is being absorbed from the small intestine or moved from the small intestine into the bloodstream by diffusion. And diffusion requires, one of the things that diffusion needs is a large surface area. The bigger the surface area, the higher the rate of diffusion occurs, which means as the surface area becomes large, more food can be absorbed from the small intestine. So this is very important, please. This is very important. Having large surface area is very important for absorption. Okay. Here is the human small intestine. We need to understand what gives the small intestine very large surface area. Number one, as you can see here, it is highly coiled. It is highly coiled, which means the space is very small, you see. But since it's highly coiled, it can fit into this very small egg. So being coiled is very important. Since the space is very small and the intestine is, small intestine is very long. Okay, so one of the things that increases the surface area of the small intestine is its length. It has very large surface area because it is very long. Again, in the lining of the small intestine, there are a finger-like projection is called villi. Finger-like projection is called villi. The singular is called villus. This structure increases the surface area still further. It contains what's called a lacteal inside the villi, and around the lacteal there are blood capillaries. As you can see, this is a red part of the capillary, which means the part which absorbs the food and nutrients from the small intestine. And this is blue. If you see blue, which means that part contains a deoxygenated blood. It carries waste from the cells itself, because the cells are living also. In addition to that, each microvilli contains what's called a microvilli, which increases the surface area still further. So if you look at what gives the small intestine, it is a large surface area is number one, because it is long. Number two, it contains what's called villi, which increases the surface area of the small intestine. So having said that, we need to see adaptations of the small intestine to absorption. Number one, the human small intestine is about 5 meters long. This provides a large surface area. I told you that before. Please remember, as you see the large surface area, remember the length of the small intestine, which is very long. Number two, the walls of the small intestine is lined with a tiny protrusion is called villus. Each villus has a blood capillaries and lacteal. So a blood capillary, here we have three foods which need to be digested, and that was carbohydrate, protein, and lipid. So the final products of carbohydrates and proteins are soluble in water, therefore they can be absorbed by the capillaries, blood capillaries, because blood contains water, which is hydrophobic to fat molecules. lipids, the final product of lipids is hydrophilic, which means they cannot be dissolved in water molecules, so they can be transported or absorbed by the lacteals. So the end products of these two molecules are absorbed by the blood capillaries, and the end products of lipids are absorbed by the lacteals, which is the smallest units of the lymphatic system, process of lymphatic system. Okay, the villus increases the surface area of the small intestine, so the absorption of digested